This is Breighlynn Polk interviewing Nicole De'Costa for the HBCU Radio Preservation Project. It is currently 3:19 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. This interview is being recorded at the WHCJ radio station located at Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. So can you first start off by telling me your full name and the role that you had at the WHCJ radio station?
Well, my full name is Nicole Wiggins De'Costa. I go by Nicole De'Costa now. Wiggins is my maiden name, and it was the name that I went by when I worked here. I have been a volunteer here at the station for at least 10 years, and I've also served as the special projects assistant for the WHCJ You Can Get Anywhere From Here grant.
Perfect. Thank you. And we'll talk about that a little bit more moving forward. But first, I would like to know a little bit more about who you are, where you grew up, and how you were raised. So first, can you tell me where you were born and raised?
So I am from Savannah. I was born and raised here.
Perfect. So it seems like, do you still live in Savannah?
Yes. Currently, I live in Savannah, yes.
Okay. So it seems like you love home.
I love to travel.
Okay.
But having a place that I can call home is what feels good to me. So that's why I love being here. I have lived abroad. And like I said, I travel frequently. So, this is home base for me. And I own a home here. So it's also a place where I can come and be in a familiar space that's mine.
Okay, and I definitely am interested in your traveling, so we'll get into that in a few moments as well. Thank you. So you say you were born and raised in Savannah. Can you tell me who the people were that raised you, kind of how you grew up?
Well, I am the oldest of 10 children. My mother was a single parent, and the neighborhood that I came from actually no longer exists in Savannah. It was called the Hitch Village Projects, which was a public housing community in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, and you say it no longer exists. Was it like torn down?
Yes, they tore it down. It was Robert M. Hitch Village, I believe that was the name of it.
Okay, and how was that community growing up?
It was kind of like any housing project that you would expect in the 90s, drugs, crime. But it had a lot of sense of community and family. Even to this day, even though the community no longer exists, we still have like get-togethers, like yearly like family reunions. It's the community reunion they still do. And actually that's become popular in Savannah, where a lot of the old neighborhoods or old projects or public housing communities that don't exist, the people still come together to do those type of yearly meetups. So that lets you know that regardless about what was going on, in the environment, that the people there still fostered some type of, love for one another.
Now, exactly where in the city of Savannah is it located? Is that a certain region of the town?
It is located close to downtown, like literally right off of President Street. So you have Hitch Village, and then across the street you had Fred Wessel, and then a couple, I would say, minutes away you have Yemacraw, and all of that is basically in the downtown area. So I could literally go to the edge of the street and then just look and see downtown. Or, we would frequently go down there to go to River Street, or like back in those days, you would have to physically go pay your bills downtown. So you could just walk, to the light company or any place you needed to, the water company or whatever, in downtown Savannah.
So I know you said it's no longer there anymore. Can you tell me what is there now?
So they built a new housing community there. I don't know the name of it. Fred Wessel, which is across the street, that structure, those apartments are still up and running. And Yemacraw, as of now, is still up and running that I know of. But Hitch Village was the only one that was torn down. And they relocated a lot of the families and people who were there. Even a lot of the elderly people and the disabled people. Like I know they live in what's called Stillwell Towers now, which is a different public housing community closer to Midtown.
Okay. So I know you said that was going to be my next question. Were some of the families displaced once they...
Yes. I do know of a couple people that I grew up with who actually because we moved before they closed it down and tore it down. But there were people that actually, they spent their whole lives out there that had to try something different. And some people weren't prepared for it, and some people just continued on with that public housing route, and just moved in different neighborhoods around the city.
So the demographic of that particular community, was it predominantly African American?
Yes, it was. I maybe remember having one Caucasian neighbor, but it was mostly Black people, and Black people who were related to one another. So it wasn't just like, you come in and you don't know anybody. If you moved there, most likely you knew somebody. And my mom was pretty young when we lived there. So she knew a lot of the people from, growing up here in Savannah, and just people who she knew like in school and stuff. So I got to know a lot of people like I guess you could say a second generation of people from the projects. But that wasn't even how my mom was actually raised. My mom is from Ohio. My grandma is from Savannah, but she moved up to Ohio. And when they came back down to Savannah, she worked a lot, and she raised her kids to be used to like homes and stuff like that. But my mom, she was the youngest, so she took a different route and she lived her best life.
Mm-hmm. As mothers should.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, just speaking about that community a little bit more now, is it still predominantly African American? Has the demographic changed?
I would believe it's still probably the same.
Okay.
And I also would probably guess that it's a lot of people within my age range that, I guess the millennial age range, mm-hmm. that occupy those spaces. I don't know exactly, but I would assume that's what's occurring.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said you are a millennial. Can you tell me when you were born, or you can tell me the year if you don't want to tell
me?
Oh,
well, I'll be 30 in a month. I'm a Cancer. I don't mind saying it. Yeah. I was born in 94. Yeah.
Okay. My mom's a Cancer, so
yay.
I'm a Capricorn.
That's my moon sign.
Yeah, I know. Okay. My rising sign is a Cancer. So,
really?
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love you already.
A lot of water in my chart. Absolutely. So, that means that you were raised, you came up about the late to early 2000s.
Like the late 90s, early 2000s. So I lived in that neighborhood from, I think, 97 to 2007, or maybe 96 to 2007. Mm-hmm.
So most of your grade school years.
Grade school and middle school was in that neighborhood. So yeah, it was definitely different for me to see what life was like outside of something like that, because I have memories living there of like people dead in my backyard. It was a guy who got shot, and literally I looked out my window because we lived upstairs, and I just see him on the ground, and I got to see the process from him being dead all the way to, the crime scene investigators coming and wrapping everything up, and all you seeing is the stain left behind. So that was, the type of exposures that I had growing up as a kid. I remember like my mom, she would come to like get us after work or whatever. My brother and sister had a great grandma that lived around the corner who we would go to. And so one night, like my mom and her boyfriend came to pick us up from there, and it was literally a shootout happening. So it was like something in the movie where she covered up my brother and sister's heads with a blanket, and her boyfriend carried them, and then my mom had me, and we were like ducking around buildings because we lived upstairs. And so we had to duck around buildings from where they were parked at to get to our actual building, which was like maybe like one building behind. So, stuff like that, it triggers your memory, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, that was a part of my childhood, but yet and still here I am, Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that it's kind of common for, inner city.
It's not, it would seem that way to be, but growing up, when I met a lot of people, they didn't have a lot of those types of experiences. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was just because of where my mom was in her life at that time, or with her being young, because like my mom had me when she was 15. So the things that you would expect older parents to be mindful of, younger parents aren't really mindful of those same things. And inner city kids, I guess you can call it inner city, but with Savannah it's kind of different because the whole city has it's set up really weird where you can literally be in a place with a high income. You could be in a place where it's high income, and then the next street over, you have low poverty. And when I say low poverty, I don't mean just, food stamps. I'm talking about you can visually see the poverty, like the mentality, the mindset of despair almost. But on the next street, you have a multi-million-dollar house. Like that's how Savannah is set up. It's back and forth like that. Like you can't really sometimes even differentiate what type of people are living in a certain area because it's like it's all mixed together. So it won't just be in the projects that you could see something like that happening. I also lived, which is a popular area in Savannah, especially back in that time, in the 90s, like growing up on Waters. That was a highly populated black area, but it also, there was a lot of crime going on in that area too. But you had homes that were really nice. You also had apartments and duplexes where you had a lot of people doing drugs and different type of things going on. So everybody's experience is different. I can only just speak about like mine, but talking to other people, they'll be like, "What, really?" And I'm like, "That's not what yours was like." And it was like, "No, no, okay."
And most of them were from Savannah as well.
Yeah, a lot of people from Savannah, other cities as well, just like talking to people and you realize what is a childhood, It's whatever the adult or the circumstance permits for a childhood to be,
Absolutely. So did you feel that even though that was a part of the environment you were raised, that you still had a decent childhood or?
Yeah. Like I said, I was the oldest. So when you're the oldest child, your childhood is kind of like a responsibility to not only yourself, but your siblings and the structure of your family unit. Like I was the second parent in the house. And at that time, I was just the oldest of 5. So I had the same responsibilities of an adult. And my mom will say that too. She's humble enough to say that, she put that much on me because that's what she needed at that time. She was young. So, but it made a lot of things easier for me growing up because I wasn't so afraid of being responsible or traveling or, being exposed to different stuff because it didn't scare me. And my siblings benefited from it because they all, from what I learned growing up and then what I took from other exposures that were positive, I fed back into them. That was like one of my life's purposes growing up, to give them the example that they didn't have. And so they took that and like literally they all live in different places around the country. I got one about to graduate from high school, like they really live in their own lives. And I'm very proud of them for that. I feel like a grandma because I have kids. I'm like, it's my grandchild.
I understand. I kind of had a similar background with my upbringing as well. So I totally understand. I'm an oldest child too. So
yeah,
I know
yeah.
what that means and what that entails. You're like the second parent.
Yeah.
That didn't birth the baby. So,
no.
Yeah.
You didn't go through the pain, but you went through the pain.
Yeah. No, I understand that completely. So you said that your mother was a single mom. What was her name? Or what is her name?
My mom's name is Tamika. I won't give her last name because I don't have her.
You don't have to at all, but Miss Tamika. Seems like she instilled good qualities in you as far as like.
My mama was a hustler.
Gotcha.
Like she is a go-getter. Like my mama was a rapper. So like I said, I had an authentic experience. It wasn't boring whatsoever. She was always interested in learning about doing different things before it even became popular, like how it is now. Like she enjoyed learning from like anything she thought that she could do, she would just go and do it, even if she felt like, whether she had the experience that she needed or whether she had whether she had anything that she really needed or not, she would at least try it. And I saw her fail a whole heck of a lot. And, I learned the reasons why she failed later on just through observation. But I always took from her that at least if you try, if you fail, okay, but at least you try. Most people don't even try. And most people, like I said, who I've had conversations with just about effort, if they don't have somebody to do it with, they won't do it at all. And this is kind of funny, but Mama always taught me, if you're going to do dirt, you do dirt alone. Mm-hmm. Like anything you do on your own. You don't bring other people into your projects or your things you're trying to do, because some people just won't help, But I guess like when you hustle on your own. You figuring it out on your own, you do what you can with what you have to offer, that type of thing.
Yeah. So was there a community, or I call it a tribe, but did you have a community outside of your mother and your siblings that helped to kind of
Yes.
you all?
A lot of my family is from Savannah or live in the Savannah area. So I come from a larger family unit. My grandmother, her mom, is one sister out of 5 siblings. So, I have a lot of cousins and they were all really close. My family dynamic is mainly made up of women. My great grandma, she suffered from mental health issues. So she left the home early and left her kids behind, which left my great granddad to raise 4 girls and 1 boy. Yeah. So, and that was like in the days here in Savannah where if you needed to get your child out of jail, you would go paint the judge house, like that type of thing. Like you had to have a mentality of, if I don't have the money to do it, like I said, what effort can I put in place of that financial, benefit? So that's what I learned a lot from like my family, is you can do whatever you want to do as long as you feel like doing it, but if you don't feel like doing it, it just ain't gonna get done. Yeah.
Totally understand that. Now, I know you said you were born and raised in Savannah, and that there isn't really a thing as spatial segregation, I guess, for like, since you said each street kind of varied.
Yeah, neighborhoods differ.
Mm-hmm. So with the schools, were the schools that you attended more diverse as far as like
No.
students? No. How was the school structure?
The school structures in that time, where I lived at, like I said, in Hitch Village, there was actually an elementary school right across the street from my neighborhood, but we had to go a mile down to another elementary school, and so we would literally walk to and from school, hot, cold, rainy, whatever, a mile away. They didn't even offer buses coming to our area. All of that type of stuff actually came like later on. I heard for the people in that area, but the school I went to, Frank W. Spencer, which is also no longer there. They tore it down and remodeled it, and so now I think it's called Andrea B. Smith Elementary School. But it was predominantly Black, and I now work in education, so I see a lot of those faces that I was aware of growing up, like teachers and paras, and a lot of those people had, oh my gosh, when I say outside of family, school has always been like my place, like my home. And I've definitely been grateful for having that type of environment because it was consistent. It was a consistent space of support, like when you don't have that support at home, you have that place at school where you can get away to. That's what it was like for me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a reason why y'all had to go to school a mile away, even though there was one across from you? Or
I have no idea. I always wondered about that because how they had it set up, I'm vaguely remembering. Like I said, it was Hitch Village, and then across the street it was Fred Wessel. But if you lived in Fred Wessel, it was zoned for that school right across the street. But just that one street separated which elementary schools you went to. So yeah,
it's something I'm always kind of dabbling in because I know the school system, certain
yes,
zoning, and
you will find a lot of interesting things about the school system here.
Zoning.
A lot of questions like, why did that? That didn't really make sense, but okay.
Yeah. So I know you said your mom was a rapper coming up. Did that have
Hmm.
any type of influence with you and with music?
Yes. Music is, oh my gosh, it has been a predominant part of my life. So growing up, my grandmother, she was, like I said, she worked a lot. That lady could find a hustle anywhere. But one of the things that was her life's work was working in the church. So um I grew up from with music from that perspective. So through gospel and just the spiritual side of music, the old southern country, you go in, you singing hymns, you singing things that you wouldn't usually hear nowadays. Like I grew up in that type of environment where it's only like maybe 5 people in the church, but you're gonna have church regardless. You're gonna go through that whole tradition of the sequence of events that you're supposed to go to within a Baptist church. So that was how it was, with my grandma. And so that's why I was so interested with my mom. She was the complete opposite, like she enjoyed singing, but she also enjoyed like rapping. To this day, she still does make music. So, she stuck. It's something that was just always a part of her. With me, just listening to music, understanding it, learning it, it was a part of it's a part of even my adult life now where, I've been volunteer at the station since I was 18. I came in even before I had graduated high school because I was just interested in being a part of that culture, but as not just a listener, but a producer of the element. You know what I mean? So, like I said, working in a radio station, but also even now I do archival with a music collection. So I'm getting to see records, CDs, albums, things that it's like people don't even know these people exist. Learning that information and then researching it and learning about a whole history of artists, black artists especially, who have lived, and some of them died really early, so you may not know who they are, but like that's the type of impact that music has always had on me. I like to not only listen to the music, but I like to learn about the artist. How did you get here and what was your motivation?
Like a music historian almost.
Yeah, like it's really, I love it. It's just, that's my passion.
Yeah, I understand. I love music too. So. It's always nice when you can find something that you're passionate about and then find work that is related to it.
Yes.
Yeah, so seems like that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So did you have any particular genre of music that you prefer over another? I know you say you had a lot of experience with like rap, gospel.
No, I'm very open-minded. I love all music because it all has a different perspective. No two songs are the same. They may be similar, but just like no two artists are the same, they may be similar. So what you can learn from one person's perspective, you can also take that, and see it in somebody else's, but from a different point of view. So I love all types of music, all different genres across the board. International music as well. Like it's just, my mom used to always tell us growing up, if you don't know what the words mean, don't say it. So very early on, I learned to intentionally listen to lyrics. So it's not just me listening to the beat. It's not just, the vibe of it. Like, what are you saying? What are you trying to tell me? What am I getting from this experience? From just, hearing what you have to say. Will it impact me? That type of thing,
And it's words from the wise because your mom's a lyricist, so I'm pretty
sure.
So
And she's a Cancer too. So.
Yeah.
She was really deep about that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't get it then, but I get it now being a mom. Like that's something you definitely have to take into consideration with kids, like what they are being exposed to. It means a lot, especially when it's going into the school systems, what your children are being exposed to and sharing to with their friends.
Thank you for that. So I know that you said you started volunteering at the radio station at 18, but did you have any other earlier memories of radio before you got here?
The local radio stations, like I said, having a parent who's a musician and listening to her being interviewed, I think that's what really got me wanting to be a part of radio, was listening to my mom be interviewed one night and then hearing my cousins calling in up, to the station during her interview and just giving her shout outs and stuff. Like culture here in Savannah was always listening to the two major black stations, which were E93 or are E93 and 94.1. So like that's what you grew up with. And I actually had a chance to like meet a lot of the DJs at that time. Like some of them are still around, and then some of them have like moved away and are doing other things, but like they were here at one point in time. And so that's really interesting to see their growth or whatever. So, that got me a lot into wanting to work with radio and broadcasting. Somebody that got something to say,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of common with people who
Yeah.
kind of make that a career trajectory that they want to kind of pursue. So
It's a hobby that I love getting paid for.
Yeah.
I'll put it like that.
Understandable. And that's how it should be. I think it's a blessing when people can find that type of
balance.
opportunity.
Yeah. Between, I'll do this for free, but I also don't mind doing this to get paid to do it because it's just a part of what I enjoy. It's like other things too. My undergraduate degree is in mass communications with an emphasis on audio and video production. But a different aspect of what has motivated me is the type of programs that I have been a part of growing up, which have also like influenced, my life. So my master's degree is in public administration. So being able to understand the community aspect of, just working in the social environment or just being a part of that helping, aspect of life, but also taking something like music and radio, a medium where people stop and listen and being able to tell them something that they may not have heard. You'll be surprised how many things people have not ever come across or heard, or little tidbits. Like here in the in this area, like you will always hear somebody say a little tidbit. And the tidbit is something like a little saying, don't let the left hand know what the right hand doing, just this little tiny stuff. And so having that space to do those types of things, it's always really fun because the expressions, the responses that you get from others. So it's different. Mm-hmm. It's a variety of things, Yeah.
It leaves that space open for opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that you said again that you started here as a volunteer at the age of 18 before you even became a student here, right?
Yeah, I came up to see the station and I just fell in love with it.
So can you tell me what that experience was like before you became a student here, like volunteering at the station?
I didn't volunteer.
Oh, you didn't volunteer at the station?
No, I came to visit, yeah.
So how was that visit when you first seen it?
Oh, girl, that was a long time ago. I'm going to assume that it was awesome for me. It was eye-opening. I had only been up to one radio station before that. I had always been around studio stuff, like at home and all, but it wasn't until, like I said, I actually became a student here and being able to see the station. Like my purpose at that point in time was to get into production in general. Like I wanted to just learn more about production, script writing and stuff like that. And so coming down to the station, having people like Mr. Carter and Miss Grace at that time. Mr. Carter was the director and Miss Grace was the assistant director. They were on it when it came to instruction, teaching you about what we call it, soft skills and hard skills. So how to be in a professional environment before you even reach that professional environment, like knowing, what to do in advance, because a lot of students who don't have that type of training. I was one of them. I didn't know a lot of things when it came to being able to adapt in a working space. So with all of us as students, I've seen even since then with other students, like they always made sure to plant that seed of it's not just about you, it's about what you can become. Like not just who you are now, but it's about who you're growing into. And that growth is hard. Mm-hmm. It is definitely hard, but they have always been a pair, even after Mr. Carter's retirement and Miss Grace becoming director. Like they have always been a pair that kept their students ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that because it changed my life. I'll tell anybody that being here really changed my life.
So, what made you decide to attend Savannah State University, even though you're from here? Was it
Mm-hmm.
because it was close to home, or
No, not at all.
okay?
It was not my first choice.
Okay, you want to tell me a little
So
bit about that?
yeah, I didn't even want to come to college.
Okay.
I was going to actually drop out of high school.
Hmm.
I was over it. I was ready to leave home. I was over that lifestyle of having somebody, direct my path when, I knew I wanted my path to be in a way. I wanted to go ahead and be in charge of my own life.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember coming across this YouTube video of this lady who lived abroad. And like I told you, I've always loved traveling. But she was telling us about the requirements for the job that she was doing, and it required a bachelor's degree. And I was like, dang, that means I'm gonna have to go to college. And so I remember my mom telling me if I went to college that she would buy me a motorcycle, because I wanted a motorcycle real bad when I was little. I was one of those girls, and I was like, okay, dang, I may have to go to college. So I remember my senior year of high school, I had just kind of settled into the high school that I was going to, because we moved a lot, which means that, baby, you ain't knew what school you may be going to next year. But the school I actually graduated from was the best, because it was in a neighborhood that I was, how can I put it? It was in a neighborhood that I kind of grew up into, another part of Savannah, where I had family over there and a lot of the people that I grew up with. And it was very home based. Savannah High. Shout out to Savannah High. So I was able to see a lot of teachers that I knew, a lot of friends from elementary school that I had not seen in years. I felt like I had gotten home, and which was crazy because I didn't want to go there. I was like, no, I don't want to be, but going there it changed my life. Because I got back into a program called Gear Up, which is also a part of Savannah State. It is it's a program where they go into the middle schools and they travel with the kids from middle school all the way up to high school. And remember that exposure thing I was talking about? Mm-hmm. They take the kids from, when I say everywhere, up and down the East Coast, New York, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, we go west. They travel with children from these really tough backgrounds and take them to see what's out there. And they take them on college tours and all too. It's a program out of Savannah State, but it's a federally funded program or whatever. And it's still going on. It's over 20 years strong. So being a part of that program and, having them help me get prepared for college, initially I wanted to go to the Art Institute for Atlanta. But I remember one of the people that worked with it, she was telling me about a scholarship to Savannah State. And it was a full ride scholarship. And one of the requirements was that you had to live on campus. And I was like, what? Really? This sounds like everything I want. I don't have to pay for it. I get a free laptop, and I got to live on campus. So I don't have to think about I don't have to think about what I'm going to do after I graduate from high school. Because I was already working at that time anyway, Mm-hmm. And I remember taking my ACT and my SATs, and my test scores were pretty good, but my GPA was pretty low because, like I said, I hadn't thought about really school all those years growing up. My mom would always just say, as long as you can get to the next grade, that's good enough, So I remember the guy, when I came to do my my scholarship interview, he was like, well, Nicole, I got to be honest with you. Your test scores, they're all right, but they're pretty low. Your GPA, it's okay. He was like, but I'm going to give you a chance anyway. And Lord, when I tell you, I cried. I cried. I was like, well, it's everything I want. I get to live on campus. I get to, he's like, but the first semester you're going to have to bring your grades up to a B. Like, you don't have a choice about that. And guess what I did that first semester, that freshman year? Honey, I had all A's. I wasn't playing around with these people.
It's something about when the school tells you we're gonna give you a scholarship, but this is what you have to do.
Yes.
And then knowing where you come from, you're like, I don't want to go back there.
It's like you don't have a choice. Like, okay, Lord, if this is what you say for me, if this is what I have to do to get to where I want to go, it is what it is. I got it. So it all worked out. It was called the Savannah Education Initiative Scholarship, and it was actually funded by a lot of the well-known names, like wealthier families in Savannah. They no longer host that scholarship anymore, but at that time it was a really big deal because it covered a lot. I eventually even went to live in China for a year, and the scholarship paid for everything. My plane ticket, my classes, my housing there, like everything. So it definitely made a big difference. And I was happy I came to Savannah State because I needed a different cultural perspective than what I had known growing up. Kind of like what his name is, Tahisi Coates, like what he talked about in his book. I can't remember the name of it. Oh gosh, Between the World and Me.
Yeah,
I think that's what it's called. Yeah. I could identify with his perspective, like when he went to Howard, and he was like, he saw all of these different types of Black people. You know, he got to see all of these different types of people that were completely different than his type of poverty growing up. That's exactly how I felt. Like, I didn't know that people had different types of backgrounds than the one I had. I thought everybody grew up poor in the projects. Like, it was like, no. I thought everybody had teenage parents, and it was like, no. Like, I didn't know that the world was so diverse even within my skin color. You know, it wasn't just about being Black. It was about being an individual too, and what you want for yourself, and how what you want for yourself can, you know, affect your children, you know, your generational line and that type of stuff. Like, that's what I ended up getting coming here to Savannah State, that I had a lot of choices to choose from, you know. I don't think I would have got that anywhere. At that age range that I needed it, it definitely served a purpose.
And I'm sure it was an eye-opener as well, you being in the same city where you were born and raised, and then seeing that whole different perspective of not even just, you know, the diversity, but just seeing it within, like you said, your own skin color, your own people who identify with who you are. And
yeah, I didn't know that a lot of Black people went to college. I thought it was like one of those things where, oh, you just kind of say it, or you may have a person that they may attempt it, and they may go away their freshman year, but they come back home and then, you know, just start living life after that. Like, I didn't know that there were people who were like Black professionals, especially outside of just being a teacher. Like, there were people who, you know, they had other fields other than just teaching that they thrived in. I didn't know. Like, you know how they say you don't know what you don't know? Coming into an HBCU and having that experience, it was like, wow, I didn't know that there could be so many different versions of me that exist in the same environment. That's what I got out of it. And it changed my life. It blew my mind, actually, because even with Miss Grace, meeting her, she grew up from the same type of environment I did. But if you saw her, if you met her, you would never know that. And it's not because she's any different, you know, or she acts a certain type of way or anything. It's just because diversity, even within those confined environments, it's okay to still be your own individual self. Like, you don't have to be the environment that's around you. You can just be who you are and just move through it.
Right. I always say Black people aren't a monolith.
Yeah.
So, and that speaks to that as well. So that's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I love this so far. We even got, you know, but yeah. I want to say, try to keep this on, but we'll have a talk after this. So, you came here at 18, and then you said you already came to tour the station. When exactly did you get involved? At what point in your college career did you come to the station and become a volunteer?
Oh, my freshman year. So when they sent out that all call, because WSSU, the student station here, they sent out the all call for an interest meeting for those who are interested in pursuing a spot, you know, on the student radio station. Because with WSCJ, you can't just join WHCJ, you have to go through training first. And the best type of training is to work with the student station first. So, I mean, it was two other random people. I didn't even know these kids. You know, they were wonderful people, but I was like, hey, you want to do a radio show with me? Hey, you want to do a radio show with me? Did we do it together? No. But I stuck it out, and I ended up just having a show by myself. It was called the Nicole De'Costa Show. And I actually kept that program for, oh my gosh, at least 2.5 years. Even when I went to China, I pre-recorded before I left so that they would have content while I was gone. And so it was a talk-based program with music. So, you know, I would have special guests on from time to time, professors and all. Like, they were it was a very open space. And I loved doing it. I remember asking my sociology professor, I think it was Dr. Alexander, because I had that first semester I took sociology, so it was that first semester that I got here that I went for it. I didn't wait. And I remember asking her, well, I want to start a radio show. And if I did a survey, should I ask people what they want to hear? And so her response to me was, well, are you doing it for them or are you doing it for yourself? Ooh, girl. Okay. Chills. I'm doing it for myself. Mm-hmm. So I took that perspective, and like I was actually able to just sit in a room by myself and just express myself, you know, and, you know, a lot of people don't realize how therapeutic that can be. You don't always have to be in front of an audience that you can see. Sometimes just putting it out there, whether it's through music or talking to somebody or whatever, like it just helps you become better, you know, at your craft. Because you're practicing on your own and you're focusing and you're just getting it put together. You know, you got to do that process from beginning to end on your own, the planning, the writing, the research. You know, you have to put that work effort in. And Mr. Carter and Ms. Grace was really big about that. So any help I needed, like any assistance with getting people or anything, like they were always supportive about that.
Thank you. You see, and I've heard that commentary and that testimonial as I've been doing these interviews. So
it's for real, yeah.
And it pays to have dedicated people who not only are dedicated to the station, but dedicated to the people who come into the station.
Yeah.
Their learning processes and things. It ensures success. So
they were definitely my fairy godparents. And like, I'm so serious. Like, it's not impossible. Yeah. You know, they made everything reachable and realistic, but they never lied about the amount of work that it was going to take. So if you didn't get it right, if you were late, if you were like, the standards here have always been intentional to be used. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, if you're late after a certain time, you forfeit your time. Why? Because they're trying to teach you to be on time. And trying to make an 18, 19, 20-year-old be on time, that's hard. It's harder than most people think.
Yeah. I have a 20-year-old brother.
Exactly. So if you really want it, you're going to do what you have to do to keep it, so that, because that's when you love your skill, when you love your craft, you're going to sacrifice your friends and that time. You're going to sacrifice the fun and all that. You're going to sacrifice everything to be a part of your craft, you know, to do the work, because that's how important it is to you. And like, that's basically what they instilled in us. You don't just do that here, you do that anywhere you go. And so they kind of ended up getting a type of what's it called? They ended up getting like this type of, I don't even know how to say it, but when people knew that you came from this station, they knew that you came in prepared. Like, that type of thing, like whether it was a radio station, a TV station, whatever, like you could tell the difference between the students who were trained here and students even who come from the same university who didn't get those specific set of skills from this, you know, department. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's like they have a positive reputation within the industry.
Yes,
in this area.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that speaks volumes for sure.
It does.
Yeah, because you got all the training while you were a student, so it's like you were ready to enter that field.
I've seen professionals come in this building and say, "I'm not touching that board." but I have a student that I may have trained, and oh man, it's nothing to them.
Yeah.
Like literally, this is a state of the art studio.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you go on YouTube, it's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm biased, of course, but like I'll be watching interviews on YouTube, and I can't help but look at the studio and the board. I'm like, man, that's an old board, man. Like they need to. It's time to upgrade. Like it's just having even that type of difference, like in your training from HBCU, because I've been to other HBCU radio stations, and funding is very hard, especially when it comes to having enough funding to upgrade studios, because sometimes just the consoles alone, that's at least $5,000. So imagine having, I think it's at least 4 or 5 studios in this building, like being able to upkeep every single studio, make sure that supplies are there, that the resources are there, that the additional equipment that students will need to sign out, for a project or something, having that available to them. Like it takes a lot of money and effort to do that. And so it's like all they ask from us in return is to just do the work, take it seriously, because it's for you. All of this is for you,
Thank you. So how would you describe HBCU radio in your own words? Or
I think HBCU radio is a special thing because it's not just one thing. It's every individual. And I love it because it can't be duplicated. I've seen for-profit stations try to duplicate like the similar vibe that you would get from HBCU radio station, even if it's just, let's just say, okay, if a non-commercial educational radio station or a college station, it's certain things we can and cannot say on air, it's certain music that we can and cannot play, or certain versions of music that we can and cannot play, and you have to have an ear. So you're training your ear, to not only what you like, but to what's suitable to be broadcasted. And so when you're at a, for-profit station, or even just like a nonprofit, but it's not educationally based, they may have a certain set of guidelines for what their broadcasters can do. Like they may do only like talk radio about social issues, or they may only play a certain type of music all day, every day. Like they may not switch up the genres or anything like that. So I guess with HBCU radio, having that dynamic and that individual come in and just share themselves, that's what make it so unique, because you can't, like I said, you can't duplicate that. I've had students who've come in and did shows or music programs where it was like celestial music, or music based on covers from a certain type of genre. Like it fit to their individual self, and they were brave enough to put it out there. That's what makes HBCU radio so unique, because you're recognizing that, yes, this person may be black, and sometimes the students aren't black at all. We've had students here at the radio station who were from China. We've had Latin students come in with programs. We've had people from all different perspectives come in. We've had theater programs before. So you don't just have to follow a one set way of doing things. You can come in and share what you've learned in life, or share what you like to listen to. You don't get that a lot of different places.
Absolutely. So I know you said that you started off in your freshman year, was it like around 2012?
Yes.
Okay. I know, because I'm around your age. My math is not that good. I just know.
Girl, your math is math, and you right on it.
So whenever you came in 2012, compared to your duration here at the station, how would you say that HBCU radio or WHCJ has changed since you began to kind of?
How has HBCU radio or WHCJ changed? Well, the station has definitely grown. Oh my goodness. And a part of that was when I was here working with the station for that specific grant. Ms. Grace was able to bring in, everything new. I mean, a total gut out and just everything brand new. So seeing that physical transformation was very interesting for me. I think the students change as well. Like, I'm not one of those people that say, "Oh, people are more, the younger you are, the more difficult it is to work with you." Like, I don't agree with that, because I was a difficult person to work with. I was very difficult, but you're having more different types of people who never thought about college before think about college now. Mm-hmm. And so to me, you're needing more people who can relate to them, to be in those places, to continue to just kind of push them on and say that you can do it. Like, we've had students who, some came from similar backgrounds as me. Like, some came from very traumatic backgrounds. I'm talking about communities even worse than the ones I grew up in. But seeking, whether it's at a younger stage in life or at a later stage in life, in education. But when you haven't known any of that in your past environment, when you have parents who are drug addicts, or, you have situations where you don't have a home situation, you don't have a family unit to support you, to root you on, or anything like that. It's just self-sufficient. Not everybody in the university workspace can handle those types of people when they come in, because they are going to change the culture of how things are done, because you have to adapt to them. They can't adapt to you so easily. So I've seen in that aspect the same or similar type of determination to get everybody to the finish line in their own way. Whether you got to come back, whether you need to take a break, however, whatever your specific needs are, I've appreciated seeing that part of that, HBCU radio culture of, you don't have to be a specific type of person to believe that you can be here. You just got to be you and do the work.
Makes sense. And so how did it feel to be a part of, I guess, that culture as an HBCU radio worker?
Oh, I loved it. Oh, my goodness, I loved it. And I loved it so much because before working here at the station, remember the program that I told you, I grew up in the one that exposed me a lot to, like, traveling. It was really college-based. I worked for that program first. So my professional experience right out of college was working with them full time. And having some of my students from that cohort come to Savannah State, and some of them work with me here, it was great to see that continuation, because you don't usually sometimes get to see what happens when you work with a student. You may see them for a year or two, or if you're blessed, they may continue on till they get that degree. But sometimes you may only see them once, or, you don't know what happens to them, and you invest that love into them and you hope that they get it, whatever they're trying to get. And so for me, being able to see kids that I knew from high school, kids that I worked with when they were like 16, 17 years old, and seeing them at 20 and 21 telling me, "Hey, I'm about to graduate from college," like seeing them continue on with their lives, even till this day, some of them still keeping in contact with me. Like, being in this environment, it means something, because I know that it also means something to somebody else who saw me come from that space to get to this space right here, So that continuation of what you're doing, it means, it has an impact.
Absolutely. So what was it about this station personally that was most valuable or important to you?
They cared. Because, like I said, who I used to be ain't who I am now. I would get told on if I didn't go to class.
Really?
Yes, they would tell on me. I always I have always been very outspoken and had the audacity,
Cancer.
Yes. And so I would irk my professors' nerves, honey. They would talk about it. It was some of the questions that I would ask. My mom even had to come up here to meet some of them just to be like, she, da da da. And so having that familiar place where I could just speak my mind and not feel judged for it, but just, being told my perspective from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. That's what I think encouraged me the most to continue on with this specific station. Because no matter what I've done, no matter what I've said, no matter, how I felt, I've always been home here.
Mm-hmm. So as far as the community that I like to say that the radio station serve, that may be a better word for it, but how would you describe the community and the listeners that WHCJ their audience?
It's a lot of people. The radius here, I think it's 50 miles from where we are that it reaches. So a lot of people, a lot of different types of people listen to the station. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize how many listeners, were here, because we also not only broadcast to the city, we have online streaming as well. So you may have people calling in who live in a whole nother state just trying to tell Mr. Carter, man, I loved that set last night. Like, it just, like, you'll be surprised the different types of people that call in, and background demographic, it's not a consistent one. Like, it definitely varies. Even in the city, like, I remember when I would tell people, yeah, I'm affiliated with the station. I volunteer up there. Or even when I was working here, I worked there. Like, I had cousins who I didn't even realize, like, oh, tell Miss Grace I said, hey, like, they love listening to her program. So it's like, oh, really? You listen to the station? Like, I would have never thought that. Like, and just from a cultural perspective, like, you meet different, like I said, you meet different types of people. And you realize, oh, you like this too. Mm-hmm. Like, they like to listen to blues and jazz, the gospel in the morning, the Putumayo shows that we play, the international music from the different hosts that have come along throughout the years, like the Latin on Saturdays and stuff. Like, you'll be surprised that it's so many different types of people that have programs that they have just been listening to for years. And I think what also makes it really different is that a lot of our volunteers have been here, I'm talking about 20 years. Mm-hmm. So these aren't just 5-year-old shows that you've become accustomed to. These are shows that have been here airing since the 80s, since the 90s, since the early 2000s, the same people that are, still coming up here because they believe in the work that they're doing and they love the environment, Yeah,
I can tell based off of some of the radio hosts that I've met already. That,
yeah.
They have a rapport with the people. People want to listen to them, and it seems like they have a lot of interesting content and context that they probably bring into their shows as well.
And they teach a lot. Look here, when I tell you, I was able to buy a house because of what I learned at the station. Like, all these people here, like, they come from different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm talking about, they have accomplished so much just being in the midst of some of those conversations. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about, we say solving the world's problems, but I'm taking it, that little bit by bit and applying it to my personal life and seeing that what they're saying, it's not just hearsay. Mm-hmm. You put those types of things into action, it will make a difference in your life. That is, I think, a part of the biggest aspect of our culture here is that information is free. Like, amongst us, as volunteers or even just the campus in general, like, you're going to learn something in this environment. I share this environment with my family and friends. Like I said, I told you, I'm a big sister. Mm-hmm. I had my siblings up here every chance that I could get, whether it was having them spending the night, at my door. I can't get trouble for that years ago, or just having them come on to the campus, like cousins. I'm talking about little cousins and all. Like, I'm throwing them birthday parties and stuff, like just bringing them into this environment. My older aunts and uncles, like, some of them even came here to work here. once I started attending here, because I kept talking about how beneficial it was to be in this type of environment. Something as small as that can change a generational, like can cut generational curses. Just seeing that there is a different type of life to live. Like, I don't know if I'm emphasizing that enough, that you can literally, just through exposure, start to believe in yourself about what you can and cannot do. Like, good exposure and bad exposure definitely matters in a person's life, because you can be going down one type of circumstance, or what is supposed to happen with your type of life or your type of background, and it completely changed 360, and you become a person where people don't even believe that you came from your type of background, all because of a different type of exposure. So, honey,
exposure definitely matters, for sure. Whether it's positive or negative, it makes an impact on a person's life trajectory. So that's great that you were able to not only be exposed to these types of environments, but also continue the cycle of exposing others to show, that you can go literally, what is the
anywhere from here.
Anywhere from here.
Exactly.
From here.
Believe it, because it's true. It's definitely possible.
Absolutely. So I think I already know the answer to this question, but do you believe that you attending Savannah State University and your involvement with WACJ has changed your perspective and your impression of HBCUs before you came here?
Oh, definitely. It's not just football games, tailgating at homecoming, and, talking about Black plight. It's not that. I mean, those are factors related to the experience, but that is not exactly what it consists of. So definitely coming here, it changed, it changed everything about just the way, like I said, I thought in general, my perspective of life. It changed all of that, because, like I said, I got to see people with doctoral degrees who are not only Black, but Black women, not only Black women, but when you hear their story and you learned that they grew up in poverty, or that they didn't all come from, families with 2-parent households, or, single child situations, like, they come from diverse backgrounds. They don't just come from small cities or, counties or anything like that, or even big cities. Like, they come from any and everywhere. They don't just come from the United States. They come from all different places, like that. Having that here, it definitely is a difference. And I currently attend a PWI. So I'm applying for my doctorate in psychology, because, like I said, mental health and just learning what a perspective is and why we think the way we think is really important to me. And that same type of touch, that personalization, that homey feel, it's not the same at those types of institutions. There, you are kind of one in a number. And it's not a bad thing, because sometimes you don't want everybody to know who you are. Sometimes you just want to do your work and go home.
Right.
You just want to get the job done. But in the HBCU culture, it's not that easy, because you're learning so much about yourself. Like, even to this day, I had a coworker who was from Florida, and you can tell that he didn't really grow up around Black people, even though he was from Florida. Like, he had he never had that type of exposure, And so I told him, I said, I bet you would benefit from an HBCU college education. And guess what he did? He applied.
And did he attend?
I don't know yet. Last time I talked to him, he did apply here because he wants to be a teacher. Okay. He's a para now, but he wants to work. And Savannah State has a teaching program here. So, I mean, why not? Because you like I said, a lot of Black people don't even understand what is a part of their Blackness. Not just the negative things that we see in media, but it's so much positive to it too. That just being around maybe 2 people, you will learn, oh my gosh, I have the power to do that. Right. I have the ability to do that. All I had to do is just want to do that, and I can get it done. Like, that's what the HBCU culture to me emphasizes, that you are no different than the person you're competing against. The difference is whatever you make it to be with the effort that you put into what you trying to accomplish in your goal. you ain't gonna go to no PWI and get that.
That's a message. Because I attended at HBCU as well. I went to Clark Atlanta.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and then I attended Kennesaw State for my grad program. And while I loved my grad program, it was very homey. The outside world at the
Yeah.
institution, outside of the program, was not that, like you said, the HBCU would be where
Yeah.
you get that, whether it's in your program, outside your program, it's going to feel like home on an HBCU
Yeah.
campus. So I totally empathize with that component of it for
It's
sure.
different.
It's definitely different. So what opportunities do you believe HBCU radio stations afford Black hosts and employees?
Networking. Networking is the name of the game. You can be one of the smartest people. You can be one of the best dressed looking folk. I mean, you can literally come in, ready. But if nobody knows you, oh, I'm sorry. Let me say that differently. If you are not aware of the environment that you are going into regarding who knows you and who you know, you can literally be left in the dark about what the requirements really are, or if you're even a good fit. Fit is something that most people, especially Black people, don't take into consideration when we apply for jobs, or, when we go into new environments. Will it fit us, and will we fit it? Not about fitting in. I'm not talking about fitting in, but does it fit me, and do I fit it? And being okay with saying, this doesn't fit me, I can move on and know that my abundance is still out there. Right. Like, this experience, it does not table that for me, So that's why I believe, like, this, this type of work is so interesting, because you're not here to fit in. You're here to try it on. You're here to see what you can get out of it. You're here to meet different people. You're here to be able to learn how to listen to others. Being a broadcaster in general, you have to learn how to be a good listener. They think it's just talking all the time. I've had to listen to people who I would never have thought that I would have a conversation with, and just listen. And I learned so much from them. And so I think that's where, especially students who come into broadcasting or multimedia production, that they have a hands up, because a lot of the other majors, or even field focuses, disciplines focuses, whatever, you're only really focusing on learning the skill. With here, working in media or working in broadcasting, you're interviewing people, you're meeting people, you're putting stuff together, you're communicating with people, trying to bring them into interviews. Like, you're learning how to socialize within different types of communities of people. Like, you're learning, it's groups and organizations that I never knew existed, but because I worked in radio, and because maybe something that that group offered that related to my topic, I reached out to them. So here, when I go in public or something, I'm, you remember who I am. I mean, I remember who you are too, but dang, you remember who I am. Like, that type of thing really matters. You can get a job that way, because people will learn about your work ethic before you even do the work. Especially if they can tell that you on point and you about your business. Like, they know you gonna come and do the job because they've experienced you in some type of way. Like, most students or even professionals don't consider that. They think, well, if I get the paper, if I get the grades or whatever like that, that's it. No, it's a lot more to it than just that. The money doesn't just come from, just going through the motions. Like, you have to actually put the effort into meeting people, to socialize, and to networking. I remember one of the old presidents here, when our previous president, she would always tell us, get your elevator speech together. You only got a couple seconds to pitch to somebody how great you are. What are you going to say? And I have been in elevators with governors before, having to say what I had to say. So, like, it's one of those things where it teaches you to be prepared for anything at a moment's notice, and not feel like you don't belong in that situation. It takes out that imposter syndrome, and just, you feel there. You feel, it is what it is. I can do it.
Yeah. So were you involved in any other organizations outside of
The radio station? Yes. The international department was my second home. Oh my gosh. So I would volunteer with them a lot as well. I've done theater stuff before. I didn't. I'm not physically expressive like that, so it didn't work for me too well. I can do the background work, but falling out on the ground and just, it's just not my vibe. I like to keep it together as much as possible. But so I've tried different stuff, and I was different things here and there. But other than the radio station, I was also affiliated with the international department, and that was my door opening into traveling abroad, where that was an eye-opening experience, and being gone for so long, like, it was definitely different. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love seeing Black women travel abroad. I love that so much.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
And I'm sure.
It's a lot of Black people in the world and places that you wouldn't think that you would see Black people.
No, literally, it makes you realize that, like, the confinements of America and how it try to keep you here, and then when you leave and you realize there's a whole nother world out there.
Yes, this is what? Okay, I love anime. So I remember I was watching something, and the guy was like, "This is a fish tank, and there's a whole ocean out there." Like, and that's just that mindset, that perspective, like. This little aquarium, this little fish tank that any person would sit here and think that this is life. Baby, it's a whole ocean out there of different fish, of different lands, of seas, all type of stuff. And it's not as scary as you think to just go. Like, it's a lot simpler than you would expect. When I lived in China, it's Africans that live in China, students and adults, working people. You have people from other different countries as well that live in those different cities in China who are business people, who are students in healthcare. Like, a lot of students go to China to get their medical degrees or to get some of the classes there in order to pass back at home. Like, you have so many resources available in the world that'll get you to where you want to go. You just got to want to do it.
Right.
And you can't be afraid of what's going to come with taking that chance or that risk or, putting in that effort to even do something as simple as applying for your passport. If you can do the simple, small tasks, you'll see that they'll lead up to something greater in the end. And it's all worth it.
Always. Always. So as far as the radio station is concerned, were there any type of political messages that they spread, or was the campus at all having any political movements?
Oh, no, we don't do that.
You don't do that. I know that some people, for the sake of, making sure they're in compliance with different things, they try to stay safe with them.
Look at these folks are really big about them FCC rules and regulations. They teach them, you eat them, you learn them, you ingest them. You look at, you don't do nothing else other than what is allowed. And look here, Ms. Grace will tell you off top, if anybody, whatever, even for like some people will get upset because we won't air certain types of messages, even whether it doesn't matter the background of the person. If it's something that is, not according to, what is allowed, honey, she won't take it, and she'll let them know that it's not allowed, and some people, like, you have even churches that get upset because, with some radio stations that are for-profit stations, they don't mind having some type of contract or whatever, I guess, where they air, you'll hear like pastors' messages on air on Sundays and stuff like that. We don't do that here because it's not about that. We may play gospel, but gospel isn't just about the message or the spiritual perspective. It's a cultural dynamic to it. We're broadcasting the cultural dynamic to that music from my perspective, So, that part is very important because it keeps you out of the drama.
Right.
Out of people's personal perspectives of what they want others to be influenced by. Like, none of that,
Understandable. Yeah.
I hope I said that well enough.
No, you said it's fine. And I understand, like you said, sometimes it's safer just to make sure that you don't, I guess, put anything out there that could potentially offend someone and can get fined for saying certain things. And
Yeah, well, that and well, put it it's the educational aspect of it. Like, whereas no, like I said, we may not have pastors, be able to come. Like, if it's a community event, you can share the community event, but we can't do a call to action telling people to come to your event. And a lot of people who are not really used to the way that radio works, they just want the end product, but they don't understand that there are certain things you can and cannot say. I can't do a call to action telling people to come to your thing or telling people to go do something or whatever like that. And we teach students that straight coming in the door, because a lot of students will have situations where, even campus events or whatever like that, or, they may be interviewing an artist or whatever. You got to tell your artist that when they come on, the training goes down even to the guests. You know what I mean? Like, they cannot say this. They are not permitted. We even have it to where even coming into the station, the way that you're dressed, guests included, will get turned around if they are not meeting the requirements. Like, we send that information out ahead of time. So no midriffs, no cut up pants and jeans and stuff like that. No see-through clothing, that type of thing. And it's not to, take away your individuality. Is to get you prepared for environments where your self-expression may not be the most important aspect of your job. It's you doing the job that's more important. And you got to be ready and able to not think about that stuff being in your way, but thinking about coming and doing the work and getting the things done that you need to get done. Because you never know. I remember they would always say, you never know if your supervisor may be coming through those doors. You want to be ready every time you come in. Look here. When I say that it is very important to understand that type of stuff, it is very important, because I have even come into situations like that where I've gotten opportunities just being up here because I was available, or, the person who came in, they needed a certain type of help outside in doing something else. And they remembered, like I said, who I was. I've had students benefit from that type of thing too. Like, I had one student, honey, she graduated from here making $50,000 in her first job right outside of college. You don't see that a lot.
Not a lot at all.
I didn't even see that. Honey, I was happy and proud of her. I was, what? Yes, ma'am. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you never know. And so you always want to feel prepared for whatever may come in. Like, you don't want to feel insecure or, not ready for something that may be coming that's a part of your blessing, basically.
You gotta always dress for what it is that you want. And whether they be physical, mental, all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the conversations will just start happening. Like, I remember I was at work one day and they just started talking about stocks and bonds and different. I'm just like, hold on, where my pen and paper at? Like, you just never know. Like, the free flow of information is, yes, it's an abundance. I love it.
Definitely have to be a sponge. So, because I did my background information research on you, I see that you were a graduate student here probably in the years that COVID happened.
Yes, and I was pregnant at that time too, so honey, it was hard.
Okay. Do you want to tell me a little bit about how it was, as far as not for you personally, as well as work-wise, school-wise?
So during that time, I was working at the station full-time. We were still here. They didn't close down the universities. They staggered our time. We did have a moment where we were working from home, but they ended up just staggering our time. And so we would come in shifts and work from home when we weren't here. So I was also in grad school at that time, and I was also on my way of becoming a new mommy at that time as well. And it was an interesting experience because having the world change and bringing new life into the world and not knowing what the world was changing into was really scary, just as an individual human being. And still, keeping focus on like goals with working and managing the grant at that time too. Like I said, I'm a really open person, because with broadcasting, it's a very hands-on type of field. So the whole grant had been really created around doing hands-on work. It was nothing really picture or book related. Like everything was physically, we're going to practice. We're going, like, I was doing like 10-week training sessions with students physically, sometimes in the studio, sometimes inside of a classroom. Like we would divvy it up. So I had to take that whole format and scratch it to virtual because my students couldn't come into the building. Some of them didn't even come back to school. Some of them just continued to stay at home. So that was challenging, but I love challenges. So, you know, I did what I had to do, and I figured it out. Like me and Ms. Grace figured it out, and we were able to adjust, you know, the requirements or whatever. But it was an interesting time. You know, what they say, what a time to be alive.
Right.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I remember right before, because COVID happened in March of 2020? Yeah, March of 2020. And I remember being in one of my classes, and then literally my professor saying, we may not, you know, I may not see you physically in class after this meeting. And literally after that, that was it. No more physical meetings, because that's, you know, how bad it had gotten at that time. It was really scary. I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like I'm the toughest person in the world. That scared the heck out of me, because I knew a lot of people that passed away, mothers and daughters at that, that, you know, didn't survive the pandemic, you know, people's grandparents, friends, and, you know, stuff like that, where all you hear is COVID-related death, whether it was actually COVID-related or not. You know, the presumed, you know, cause of death was COVID-related. So that was really scary, I think, for everybody. It was a lot.
Someone who is expecting, and then
yeah,
the first time that you're expecting and have to go through that process at such an uncertain time in history.
Yeah,
you just don't know. So can you tell me how you felt? I know you said that you were scared with the pandemic going on and you were expecting at the time, but how did it feel to be a new mom outside of that?
Well, it actually worked in my favor, though. Like I said, I think God does everything for a reason. I had the best pregnancy ever. Because on the other hand of that, I was able to be at home a lot. And my classes were online, so I didn't have to physically, you know, go to a lot of my classes. I was able to do them, like, literally I was doing classwork up until the week before my due date.
Okay.
So, you know, like, being able to get through all of that was really encouraging for me. Like I said, you realize that you could do anything. You realize that you can do anything, and that nothing really matters other than, like, what you believe in yourself about what's possible. And when my son was actually born, Ms. Grace, you know, she came up to the hospital and everything. Let me tell you, it was so funny, because she was like, if I went into labor, she had a whole entire plan set out for me. She was like, we're going to have to get the ambulances through, you know, through here, and roll you down the ramp and everything. Like, I stayed until, I continued to work, like, right until, I think, like, a week or two before I was due. But it was interesting. But, you know, that was the positive part for me as an individual person that COVID did. It gave me a very quiet pregnancy. Right. And I didn't have to make excuses for not wanting to be social.
Understandable. That was the good part about it. If you wanted to isolate yourself, you had more than enough reason.
Yeah. Like, it was okay with no questions asked. Like, I didn't have to do a baby shower or anything. I was so happy. Like, I wasn't interested in none of that.
And that becomes a headache in itself, too. So, totally understand. So, we're going to move a little bit closer to the closing. Let's see here. I like to ask this question to people. So the name of this project is the HBCU Radio Preservation Project. Why do you think that this initiative and other initiatives like it are important to the culture of HBCU radio?
Because you get to learn about people. Everything survives because of the people who are affiliated with it. And every single person that you interview, you never know what you're actually getting into by talking to this person. They may, you know, influence something greater even in you as a person to what you aspire to do. You never know. It may encourage even the people who create programs like this, who may be listening to even this interview, to extend it to other places, or, you start listening to people like me who have a story, who have a background, who comes from an environment where, this wasn't supposed to be in my picture. This wasn't supposed to be in my story. A lot of other things could have been, but it didn't. And then you start feeling a little bit more empathy. Mm-hmm. You start to empathize with people a lot more, that it didn't matter a lot about who they were or what they were or even what they were influenced by. It becomes more about this person. Who is this person? Who are these people that make up this dynamic of this environment? And in each individual radio station, you meet different types of characters. You meet different people who have something to say. And, I'm a person who I love listening to different podcasts and, talks and different things like that. And regardless of what the person is focusing on, I get to meet them, And so I love doing stuff like this or seeing stuff like this or being able to have this type of open dialogue, even if it is academic or, in that sphere, it's human, and I feel like when in broadcasting or, through multimedia, once we start recognizing that a lot of people are just like us, a lot of people want exactly what we want, even if it's different, we start giving them those things, or at least shining that spotlight on the importance of those programs. Like, even in this interview alone, I've told you about at least 3 programs that changed my life. Mm-hmm. Think about if somebody heard this who may be working up in that place where they can make those type of decisions and recognize that we need more of those types of programs, or the programs that currently do exist, they need more funding, they need more people, they need better training. If we can put these different opportunities in a lot of different places, in underserved communities, even in communities that seem like they're well served. Just because a person lives in a nice house does not mean that the children are benefiting from the education they're receiving.
Right.
But having that exposure to understanding that all human beings on an individual level are different and all have a different story to tell. But if I can empathize with you, if I can see the human in you, I can see the human in myself. Like, we project onto other people what we see in ourselves. And sometimes we may not like it. Mm-hmm. But when you're around other people who have so many different backgrounds or who have been exposed to different things, and they come and they teach you about that thing, you start to recognize in yourself, oh man, like this, like I can, you can switch it up and recognize that you can literally be or do anything. Like, it doesn't really matter as much as you think it is. That negative self-talk isn't as strong as you believe that it is. That's why I like stuff like this, because it tells the human story, and culture changes from person to person. I know you've maybe interviewed people, who are also from Savannah just like me, but hearing their story is completely different. Right. They may come from old Savannah, where it was out in the country and stuff like that. See, I didn't come from that part of Savannah. I was affiliated with it, but it wasn't my predominant experience. Right. So it's always great to collect that data, and then put it in the numbers and then see what can be done about, this information that you've received and how it can be reapplied out back into those same communities to help the people that live there. To help those radio stations continue to provide that cultural support, or even just that home foundation for students, for the community, for the people who work at those radio stations, to continue to provide that service, because it's a service at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And it's a service that helps more people than a lot of other things that are not as personal. This is a very personal experience,
But thank you for that. We appreciate, you seeing that vision within this project. 'Cause that's what we aim to do for sure. So, what would you consider to be your proudest accomplishment while working at WHCJ?
My hardest accomplishment, my most
Proudest.
challenging.
Or you can give me your most.
Oh, hold on.
challenging-
What did you say?
I said proudest, but you can tell me.
Oh,
what
my
was,
proudest
Yeah,
accomplishment.
but you can definitely tell me what was your most challenging as well.
Um, let me see. Okay, I'll answer both of them.
Okay.
My most proudest accomplishment with working here was going to the graduations of my students that had, when I came in, they were like freshmen. And to see them, and I know it's not a personal accomplishment of mine, but have been a part of their process, their journey, it touched me in so many ways that I didn't know that I could be that proud of somebody else's journey. You know what I mean? Like seeing them, like I said, being that student is one thing, being that professional is something completely different. And so seeing some of the students that I had worked with when they were, because I came in the spring, so they were second semester freshmen. And so going from that point and seeing them develop and evolve and grow, and, I'm a tough cookie sometimes. So, I don't give them a lot of leeway. And, but, I've had situations where students were just upset at me because they didn't like it. They didn't like the discipline. They didn't like not having those excuses, help them out. I've definitely got my fair share of, upset situations, but those same students always came back and apologized or asked for more training, or like they would come back and see what it was that I was trying to initially tell them. And then they'd be like, I didn't understand it then, but I understand it now. Like that made me proud. Not because of me, but because of them. Like them wanting to see the growth within themselves and willing to humble themselves enough to do the work to get to that point that they wanted to get to. That just made, I cried over stuff like that because I know how that feel. I keep bringing up that word empathize. Like, how it feel. You don't just feel for a person. You yourself can see what that takes, the discipline that it takes to get to that moment in your life where you're just like, I did it. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. So that made me very proud, seeing a lot of them walk across the stage, and get their degrees. What was challenging for me was recognizing that it takes a lot to run a radio station. It takes a lot to do anything regarding something that is literally 100% technology. I won't say 100% technology, but the majority of it is technical. So you have to learn with technology, which means you have to learn the new software. We had to get trained on our new Audio Vault software. So what we have now, as far as like, what we use in-house is not the same that it was when I was here as a student. It got updated, and it was a lot more challenging to understand. So having somebody like Miss Grace, I mean, honey, she sat there with her notebook, and when that man was here training us, she ate it up. Like, she took it in like it wasn't nothing. And she fed it back to us in a way that we could understand. That's what a good supervisor does.
Right.
They take it and they make it plain. So having to evolve with the technology, the boards were different. So we had to do training on new boards, like even over here, or even with the like the CDs, the CD players and stuff like that, even those were updated. So with anything with technology, it's always going to have to be initiative to want to learn it. with production, with editing. You know, I would teach students about using different editing software. They may have been used to the free software that you can get online from anywhere, but when you have to use the more professional software that take a lot of money, you know, you don't have a lot of opportunities to practice on it. So having to teach somebody something that they may not have the ability to practice on in their free time, you know, that's really hard because you're trying to get so much information in at a specific amount of time. But the ones that want it, they get it, you know, that effort to learn it, they get it. And the ones that just need some more time, they'll let you know. And sometimes they'll kind of phase out because it's just not their thing, and that's okay too. But, you know, it's a people type of focus. Like, you got to be able to adapt to different types of people, even if it's people that you don't identify with at all. You got to find some place in your mind and in your heart to say, I see you, and we going to get through it together.
It's that teamwork, it's community.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So what wisdom would you pass on to those who are students at HBCU radio stations that want to kind of follow a similar path to you, or a career in radio broadcasting?
Well, let me say, my career is not in radio broadcasting. I always tell people that radio is my hobby.
Okay.
And it's something that I take with me no matter what I do. Like, it's something that I can apply to any career field that I go into, and I have seen it. You know, like I said, I've worked with nonprofit organizations. I've worked in education as well, but I've always been able to take an aspect of this field and apply it to those things. And so I would tell a student to think big. Don't think about this as just one streamlined career where you go in for radio broadcasting or audio production, or, you know, don't just go in for that. Because the one thing that a lot of radio or audio production or even mass communications programs don't teach is the business side of production. Production takes money. Where are you going to get that money from? Production also takes equipment. Where are you going to get the money and the equipment from? Learn things related to that. Learn things related to professionalism. The skill is simple. The boards and all that type of stuff, those are simple things to learn. But if you can't handle yourself in the workplace, if you can't, you know, access outside of just your workplace or your school place, how to get the equipment, like the cameras, the software, the mics, the headphones and stuff like that, the jacks and everything, you have to figure out a way to bring that into your life. You have to work. Right. It doesn't just come. You have to get it yourself. Like, you can't just wait on somebody to offer you the opportunity to become the thing that you want to become. I tell this to my siblings. I tell this to any child or adult that will listen. If you want it, you have to do the work. Like, if you want to be in broadcasting, look here, you have to provide yourself with the education that's necessary to become a professional broadcaster. Right. If it means that you have to learn how to write better, if it means that you have to practice speaking, or, you know, even projecting your voice, if it means that you have to learn how to make other people comfortable in your space while you're interviewing them. Like, I remember sometimes I would just leave my guests in the studio by themselves and have like a record plan so they could get comfortable in the energy before the interview, because it can be really nerve-wracking for somebody. And imagine not getting that thing that you need to get from them until after it's already done because they didn't feel comfortable enough to say it to you. Those people skills, those social skills, you know, those, you know, simple things like that will carry your career in so many different directions. And not only that, radio, it's not just about the talent. Don't just be talent. Be management, be production, be ownership, you know, be marketing, learn all the different aspects of it, not just the on air part, be able to construct an entire program, whether it's 1 hour long, whether it's 3 hours long. Know who to talk to about your distribution. So if you have a program that you want to play, how do you get that program out there? Are you putting your shows on just Spotify? Or are you putting your shows out on Apple? Like, learn the different mediums to be able to put your stuff out there. Like, don't just depend on, just putting it on like YouTube or something. Like, put it out there in a lot of different places. I would also tell a student that's interested in broadcasting to find something else. Your life's work and your career does not have to be the same thing.
Right.
You do not have to just do one thing and be one person. You are literally a limitless human being. This is the only existence that you will ever have that you are aware of. Mm-hmm. You don't have to spend it just focusing on one thing. You can hone your skills in that one area, but think about all the other things that you're really interested in or even already great at, but you just think it ain't gonna make no money. Mm-hmm. Or you see somebody else that may already be in that career field and you don't see yourself there because, well, they're making this amount of money and you're only making this amount of money. Well, you haven't been there when they had to do all of those consistent shows to get to where they are. It may take 200 episodes of something. It may take 500 episodes of something. Are you consistent?
Right.
Will it be something you can do when you're having hard times in life? Will it be something that you can do when you're having a really great day? You just don't feel like coming into the studio. Mm-hmm. Like, it has to be something that is consistently with you, no matter what it is that you are interested in doing. You take that part with you. You can work a job, but a job will always come back to the same thing, and that's being a means to an end. You have to decide what that end is. And you can't put that power in place of a work environment. It has to travel with you through many work environments. I almost felt reluctant to even continue in broadcasting in my undergrad years because in my personal life, I was going through so much and school just wasn't important to me. But what was important to me was the fulfillment of that goal. Mm-hmm. It has to be a self thing. It can't be you waiting for somebody else to do it for you, or if somebody doesn't come to you with that opportunity, baby, you go knocking on their door. You hear me? And if they say no, it's somebody else's door right there. But it has to be a personal thing. And in radio, you're going to see a lot of people that's 10 times better than you. You're going to see a lot of people that's a lot worse than you in leadership or in positions of power dictating what you do. You're going to see people that look completely better than you, that look like they need help in some type of way, but that ain't got nothing to do with you.
Right.
Don't become a part of the foolishness and the nonsense and the play. Do your work, get your coin, get your money. Your money is your growth. It's your consistency. It's the things that you can benefit from the experience. Those things matter more. And you can apply that across all type of things. And it can start something just simple as being in radio. Mm-hmm. And you can take that so many different places. It's a lot of celebrities out there that had their start in radio. But when you see them now, it's nothing even related to it. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many different aspects of just communicating with people, communicating with yourself, communicating with just whatever, that you can relate to, and just putting it out there that, I can do that. Like, child, I'm not no imposter. This is for me. I may not see another person in this room that look like me, but I belong here just like everybody else because this is my interest as well. Don't ever let nobody try to talk you out of what's for you because it seems hard, or you don't even talk yourself out of it. Do the work. If you are not afraid of doing the work, you'll recognize that the work ain't even hard. Right. It's just consistent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure that wisdom will reach who it needs to, and it will
I hope so.
Be beneficial. Absolutely. So is there anything that was not mentioned in this interview that you want to add before we close? I know you mentioned Mr. Carter and Miss Grace being influential mentors for you while you worked here at WHCJ, but is there anyone else that you want to shout out?
Honestly, I love my HBCU. Savannah State changed my life for the better. Savannah State changed my life before I even got to Savannah State. Like I said, they house a lot of the federally funded programs where they go into the school systems in places where the kids are categorized as at risk, and they help. Savannah State literally is one of those places to me that is the HBCU, yes, but look at what creates the HBCU: the employment, the people who work here. The people who work here, they're doing work that is literally changing our communities, not just the Black communities in Savannah, but I'm talking about changing and influencing a lot of the different communities, because they're networking with people outside of their community, because they don't have those type of mental boundaries and blocks, you know, that people who've never come in contact with higher society has. So they're literally doing work on behalf of people that don't even know that they need that type of help. And so HBCUs are important. You know, they're important to people who come into this environment who are minorities. You'll see Caucasian students who feel right at home. And you'll be like, huh? Yeah, feel right at home. You know, to each his own, but it's okay. You can see Chinese students on this campus. You can see Indian students. You can see, you know, students from Pakistan. You can see students from all over the world in an HBCU environment and feel like they belong. I don't know if that's just how, you know, we as Black people are, like that we are very open and welcoming, you know, but it's just the fact of they need to exist. It's not always about an economic advantage. When, you know, it's not just about going to college to make the money. You know, HBCUs offer a wealth of experience and exposure to people from so many backgrounds, and they provide it almost in a personalized state where I'm getting to know you for you without judging you. But when the people are not there to do the work, you know, when that opportunity is not there anymore, like if they were to ever not need, if we didn't technically need HBCUs anymore because everything was just so combined, that would take away that element. And it's necessary, you know. So I really do hope, like I said, with doing stuff like this, that it emphasizes the importance of, one, having HBCUs and the continuation of people coming to work at HBCUs and having that funding available so that people can work, you know, because the people who work here, a lot of them are a part of the community that they serve. Savannah State is a very big employer in Savannah, you know, so, and salary wise, it's important that we have the money in place so that people can get paid to do work that they not only love, but that's necessary, you know. So that's my little tidbit.
Well, thank you for that. Absolutely. Well, if there's not anything else that you want to add to this interview, I first want to thank you for your time. I enjoyed this conversation immensely.
No, thank you. I did too. I needed this.
Yeah, I'm happy that you agreed to, you know, share with us your experiences in Black radio, HBCU radio, as a student here at Savannah State. And I definitely want to wish you well with all of your educational endeavors.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you again for your time.